of my visit here tonight was to take your mind off all of this technology. I know you're anxious to go home and explore Facebook in your spare time, and it takes a bit of practice. I do appreciate, though, that the warnings were out there that every time you're on the internet, you're giving something away, so you have to be a little cautious. But I delight in keeping up with my daughters, who are both on Facebook, and I had a daughter who just went through the Grand Canyon as a hiking experience, and I really felt that we were with her because we're seeing all the pictures all the time, and she didn't have to explain too much. But enough of that. So we're not going to talk about dating sites or Instagram or Facebook. We'll just talk for a few moments about Londontoy. And the reason that I picked on Londontoy was this is Canada 150, and Londontoy, behold, is a Canadian company, or it was a Canadian company. And you can see the popular toys, and you've probably got some at home, or many of you have certainly seen these toys before. And I just realized, after having collected a few, that there's many, many, many that I haven't seen, and I didn't even know they existed. So I'm seeking your help, which I could do through Facebook, by the way. I'm seeking your help to find some of the toys that I am unable to locate. So that's the same picture again. I think Londontoy, aka Webster Brothers, was located in London, Ontario, and originally manufactured air compressors and spray painting equipment, if you can imagine. And they were incorporated in 1930, and they made die-cast air pumps for the war Jeeps. As we recognize them, I think they were Willis Jeeps. At the time, they made the air compressors for them during the war years. They had a federal government contract, and they made these compressors out of zinc. Somehow along the way, they convinced the federal government that all the excess zinc that they had from making these air compressors, they would turn them into toys. They were saving money not having to take the scrap across town in Toronto area to sell it, so they just made these Londontoys out of the scrap that they had, and that's really how they got into the toy business. It is not known when the toy production started, but Webster Brothers began using the leftover manufacturing material from the war effort, and their real purpose in life was to make the spray painting equipment and air compressors. And I'll show you some of the larger toys as well, which we have here, and I'm sure you've seen many of those toys as well. They are slightly larger, and Londontoys, one of the unique things about them is that many of them have a clockwork mechanism in them, and many of you who have followed Londontoys will know that these clockwork wind-up mechanisms didn't work or last worth a darn. So most of mine don't work. They also made airplanes. These are Hawker Hurricanes, and they did make war planes as well, which is a clue to the fact that I've never seen one in war gear, but they did make other models of airplanes that were in military colors. They made a series of vans, and I have some of them here. Now, this particular toy, I'll just pick this one as an example and try and continue to be brief, has wooden wheels. Now, most people would say that's a sign that that is a war toy. The reason they put wooden wheels on the toys was not to scratch Mother's dining room table. They originally had iron wheels on them, and I have one with iron wheels, and they were ugly. They didn't have rubber tires on them. They were really iron wheels, and I can imagine them doing a lot of damage to a hardwood floor and the mother's table. So they made them wooden wheels. As I said, there were many, many other toys that I don't know anything about. I've never seen them. They made many toys in military version, and I didn't realize it till I was doing a little bit of research, but here's the same vehicle in war color, and you can see that it's probably the military version. Actually, this is one of the military versions as well. But there's a whole series of these toys that were made in war mode or war colors with war medallions that I've never seen. So maybe you'll find one for me.
Got a poster.
The other thing that they made, which is rather interesting, and I guess I realize now that I had one of these, more than one of these sets. They made many sets, and here's a couple of examples of the sets. I had these sets when I was a kid, and inside was a series of toys. This happens to have been an Esso station, cardboard station that the youngster put together, and here are the signs for the Esso station that came with it as part of the set. There's an air sign for the service station, a stop sign, etc. And here is portions of the cardboard service station set that that was available there, as well as another model which I have here, which came with toys in it. And they made many models such as this, which were to represent your service station that the little kid would build out of cardboard. Gas pumps, stop signs that all came with them. Examples of the sets I just showed you. And here again is some of the pieces that came inside one of the service station sets. Greyhound bus. Now here's another plea for you. I have the Greyhound bus here. It doesn't have the logo on it. I didn't know it had a logo. I didn't know it was a Greyhound bus until I did a little bit of research, and they made a number of these buses, and it did have, at one case, a Greyhound logo on it. So if you see a Greyhound bus with a logo on it, a London toy, I need one. And here's an example of their version of a city bus, all made 1940, 1945, etc. Right here in Canada. One other thing too that I had, which I've had it for some time, that I didn't realize that was a London toy, I'll just skip ahead for a moment, was a train set. Like this set, they made train sets as well. Now some of these, I think the flat car is considered to be quite rare because they didn't put this one in the set. They kept it out of the set and sold it separately, and consequently I realized that the flat car that I have is quite rare. Interesting. All of these cars have 7,000 written on them. They also have a number in them that identifies them as having been Londontoys. There we are, another picture, or a picture of the train set. I just put a ruler beside the little toy London train cars. You can see the size of them here, and they're all identified. London Toy made many toys that are not identified as London Toys, and I believe that this is a situation where the toys were made outside of Canada. And what this firm did in order to survive, they eventually didn't survive, but in order to survive, they sold the molds for their toys outside of Canada to the United States. And in one case, they sold the molds to a firm by the name of, I believe it was W.G. Walker, more about that later. But they eventually sold the molds to a firm in Australia. So we know that there were American London toys We know that there were Australian Londontoys, and I strongly suspect that there's many out there, we just don't recognize them as Londontoys because they wouldn't be marked Londontoy. And what they did in exchange for these molds, they brought some of the toys from the United States into Canada, and their distributors sold those toys in exchange. So that's how they did their business. Londontoy made a whole bunch of things which I've never seen. Now here's a good Canadian firm. They made a police car. They made larger, they called beverage trucks. Here is an example of a 7-Up truck. They had Orange Crush truck, etc., in many colors. Different tires on them, different wind-up mechanisms, but that happens to be a 7-Eleven truck. And they made dump trucks, never seen them. A stake body truck, never seen one. A moving van, and the moving van was an Allied moving van, and the Allied moving van agent in Toronto gave every customer he had one of these Allied moving vans. And it was this size. I've never seen one. So if you see one, phone me. No Facebook, just phone me. But maybe we'll have a day soon where you can contact me on Facebook and I can put pictures on Facebook, etc. And that's one way of doing exactly what I'm doing here tonight. They made a lumber truck, a car transporter. I've never seen one. That is a Londontoy, and it came with several of cars on it. And it was one of the larger vehicles. There's very few of these larger vehicles around. This is the only large one I have. They never put a back door in the tractor trailer so that you know it's the real thing. The door didn't fall off. There never was one. So that's the type of history that you're able to find out. They made a larger Esso tanker, this vehicle in this form, apparently, and I again have never seen one of those. They made artillery pieces, and they made toy soldiers. I've never seen one. Mind you, I didn't know. So I haven't looked for the toy soldiers, but here in London, Ontario in the 40s, they were making Canadian military toys, and here it is, Canada 150, and I didn't even know that they were doing that all this time, or they were doing it until the mid-40s, and then the company apparently went into receivership. The person who started it, the company that made the compressors and the air spraying equipment, W.G. Webster, he had quite a history. He was himself in the Canadian military, and he played quite a role in Canadian politics, and at one point in time he was the commissioner of the Ontario Liquor Commission, by the way. That's just a little piece of trivia. In the meantime, his sons were running the company, and some of the history that I have here about Londontoy refers to the two sons as playboys, so maybe that tells us something else about the company. But that's my complete story. I'm sort of a plea here for, if you see some of this stuff, maybe have a look at it and take a little closer look, because it may be something that we haven't seen before.
Questions?
Yes?
What is your Greyhound bus worth, the one that you got there?
I didn't pay any more than $10 for this. I didn't pay any more than $20 for this. I probably paid $20 for this, not knowing exactly what it was, and I would expect the toys of this vintage and this size are probably, I'll take a guess and say this is $150 if you got it in mint condition.
Bird back.
Do this,
Question.
Yeah, nowadays, you see companies will do branding such as this, so if you want to use their logo, you got to pay for it. Did they approach the companies and say, hey, why don't you pay us, we'll put your logo on there for promotional purposes?
I do know the part of the ESO history there, and as you can see, I've got you know, some with the ESO logo. Here's one in really mint condition that has the ESO logo on it. ESO gave them the logos. That much I know. And I'm sure that when they put the logo on the 7-Up truck, they didn't do that for free. That's for sure. I'm absolutely certain of that. But they put many logos on them. However, I haven't seen that many Londontoys that really had a good logo intact. And there were a lot of them out there. The problem with the logos is the thumbs and the hand moisture that you have. I know where the logos went on this truck because this is how it was held. And they wear out. But they didn't do that for free. There are many companies today, by the way, Winross is one, who if you want to put your name on a truck, they'll make 100 of them and they'll put your name on them. They've got a price for doing that, but they do that. They do that every day of the week. First Gear is another company that makes very good models of vehicles.
I think we have two more. Phil?
Bruce, do they have Londontoys written on all those?
The majority do, yes. The majority do, and they have a model number 31, 32. I'll just pick one. And I can see London Toy number 13 or 15
So if
inside.
you're looking for them, you could.
If you're looking for them, you'll see that they have London Toy on them.
Right.
I suspect very strongly that some of the ones that I've never seen don't have London Toy clearly identified on them, and that may be one of the things that
Tim?
really went missing.
Two questions. How was Londontoys distributed, and when was the last toys made?
The last toys, I believe, were made in, I'll say, 1949, as soon as they completed the contract for the Canadian War, making compressors for the Jeep trucks, for the Jeeps. And they apparently had a large number of toys in a warehouse. They were distributed by a firm in Montreal, I believe, called Phillips Brothers. They were the distributor. They sold the toys in Sears and places like that in selected stores, but they were distributed out of a firm in Montreal, I think, Phillips. And although the company went bankrupt, a fellow by the name of, first name Archie, he bought the London Toy name and took all the toys that were in the warehouse and continued to sell them into the early 50s.
Do you have a second one, Tim?
No, those were
You're on both, okay.
I just had one
At the back there.
Curiosity question. Were they sold widely across Canada, or were they mostly sold in Ontario and Eastern Canada?
They were sold all across
They
Canada.
were, okay.
Yes, they were.
I'm thinking of your search of toys.
I would imagine that they probably sold the majority of them in Eastern Canada because the distributor was close to home.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's another reason we don't see too many of them.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Thank you very much, Bruce.
Okay, thank you very much.